Ever get the feeling that some schools, like their approach to academic honesty is like they're almost waiting for students to mess up, you know?
Yeah, it's a shame, but it is a pretty common approach. What I find refreshing about the York School is that they're really trying to do things differently.
Totally. So we're diving into their approach to academic honesty today, and they've got this system called a multi-tiered system of support, MTSS for short. It's really interesting.
Yeah, the MTSS. It's less about trying to catch students doing something wrong and more about understanding why those slip-ups happen in the first place. And then, giving students the tools to make better choices.
Okay, multi-tiered system of support. I'll be honest, sounds a little jargony, right?
It does a bit, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at a visual here. It shows this system as an umbrella. There are three things under it: academics, social and emotional well-being, and behavior. And there's something called Tier 1 at the top. What's that all about?
Okay, so think of it like this. Everyone gets caught in the rain sometimes, right?
Okay.
We all need a bit of shelter now and then. That's your Tier 1 support. It's there for everyone, no matter what.
That makes sense. But what about when it's not just a drizzle, but, a full-on downpour?
Right, exactly. That's where Tiers 2 and 3 come in. It's like having a bigger umbrella for those bigger storms. Tier 2 is labeled targeted support. It's for when you need a bit more focused help.
And Tier 3,
Intensive support.
the most focused help for those who need it. So you see how their approach is really personalized, just like you'd adjust your umbrella depending on how hard it's raining. Okay, I'm really liking this umbrella analogy. So not a one-size-fits-all approach. They really tailor their response to the needs of each student.
Yeah, precisely. And that's key, right? Because it allows them to address not just the symptoms, but the underlying reasons behind why someone might struggle.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm seeing a whole list of reasons why the York School uses the system, and honestly, these go way beyond just catching plagiarism. They want to provide personalized support, build an inclusive school culture, but the one that really stands out to me is their focus on prevention
Huge. Yeah,
and early intervention.
that's a big one. It's a real shift in thinking. Instead of just reacting after the fact, they're trying to stop problems before they even start.
So rather than waiting for someone to mess up, they're proactive about giving students the tools and support they need to succeed in the first place. I love that.
Yeah, it's much more effective in the long run, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it just speaks to their overall mission of excellence, right? They're not just trying to get students through the system. They want to equip them with the skills and values they need to have a successful future.
Exactly. And that brings us to the how. Because they've got a really detailed system for putting this all into action. And they break it down by the stages of assessment.
Okay, so we've talked about the why behind their approach to academic honesty. Let's get into the how. They break it down into three key stages: before the assessment, during, and after.
Right. It's like a roadmap to make sure things are good,
Yeah.
throughout the whole learning process.
Exactly. They haven't left anything to chance. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What happens before an assessment even takes place?
So this is where that proactive approach is really important. Before students even see the assignment, teachers review things like research and citation skills.
Makes sense. Don't wait until there's a problem to teach the skills, right?
Right. Making sure students know how to find credible sources and give credit where credit is due.
Totally. What else?
This is where it gets really interesting, especially today. They also figure out the AI integration level for each assignment.
AI integration level. Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. What exactly does that mean?
It means they're upfront about how much AI is allowed in each assignment.
Okay.
So one project might encourage AI tools for research, and another might have AI completely off limits. Depends on what they're trying to teach.
Wow, that's super relevant with all the advancements we're seeing. It's great that they're addressing it head on. Okay, so you've got the skills, you understand the expectations, you know how AI factors into all of this. Now let's imagine we're right there in the middle of the assessment, what's happening during that stage.
During the assessment, well, they don't just assume everyone remembers everything perfectly.
Right.
So during the assessment, they review that academic code of conduct, so it's fresh in everyone's minds.
Yeah.
Plus, they communicate that AI integration level again, just to be super clear about what's expected.
Gotta have that transparency. No one likes to guess what the rules are.
Exactly. And even during the assessment, teachers are still there to provide guidance and support. Like they might review those research and citation skills again, or clarify any confusion about the assignment.
That's really going above and beyond. It really does sound like they're doing everything they can so students can succeed. Okay, so the assessment is done. Everyone can breathe a sigh of relief, or can they? What happens after you've turned everything in?
Well, this is where that support system we talked about, the MTSS, is really important, especially if any concerns come up.
Concerns? What kind of concerns?
Well, for example, maybe something in the work seems inconsistent with a student's typical performance.
Yeah.
Or there are questions about the originality of the ideas, things like that.
Okay.
Teachers use their professional judgment. After all, they know their students best. And this really cool investigation toolkit to determine academic integrity.
An investigation toolkit. Now that sounds intriguing. What's in this toolkit?
It doesn't say exactly, but from what I gather, it helps them fairly and accurately evaluate those trickier cases where things just don't quite add up. It's like having a magnifying glass.
That makes sense. And then, based on what they find, they decide how to proceed.
Exactly. And that brings us to how they actually address academic dishonesty, which, thankfully, they've laid out really clearly. So they have 3 levels of response, and each one is connected to those tiers of support, tier 1, 2, and 3 that we discussed earlier.
Okay, so let's break those down. What does level 1 entail?
Level 1 is called concern. It's generally for a first-time occurrence. Let's say a student submits work that raises a red flag. The teacher would investigate, maybe using that toolkit, and then notify the principal. If it's plagiarism, the student might have to redo the assignment. If it's cheating, they might receive a 0 on that particular assignment.
So it seems like the focus at this level is on education and correction, rather than just coming down hard with punishment.
Exactly. It's about giving the student a chance to learn from their mistake and make better choices. They also make a note of it in the student's file and inform the parents so everyone is in the loop.
Transparency is so important. Okay, what about level 2? When does that come into play?
Level 2, called at risk, is for when there's a pattern of behavior, maybe a second instance of academic dishonesty.
Okay.
This is where it becomes a bit more serious. The student's advisor and a learning strategist get involved to provide additional support.
So it's not just about addressing the behavior, it's about figuring out why it's happening and giving the student the tools to break that pattern.
That's right. They're not just trying to catch you out, they're trying to understand what's going on and help the student overcome those challenges. And then finally, there's level 3, on probation.
That sounds pretty serious. What does level 3 involve? Level 3, on probation, that definitely has a more serious ring to it. When does that come into play?
So level 3 is reserved for situations where there's a continued pattern of academic dishonesty despite those earlier interventions.
Okay, so this is when they have to take stronger measures.
Yeah, you could say that. At this level, a student might be placed on academic probation, and a wider school team gets involved.
What does that team look like? Who's at the table?
You'd have the principal, the academic team, and any of the relevant staff members. They come together to create a more comprehensive plan to get the student back on track.
Even at that level, it sounds like the focus is still on supporting the student and helping them succeed. It's not about punishment.
Exactly. And that really speaks volumes about their overall philosophy. They see academic honesty as one piece of a much larger puzzle, right? It's part of a holistic approach to education. It's not just about following the rules, it's about developing good humans.
I love that. So it's not just about avoiding plagiarism, it's about building character and integrity.
Precisely. And this commitment to the bigger picture is evident in everything they do. For example, they have this whole statement about commitment to inclusivity and excellence, where they talk about believing that every student can succeed, regardless of their background or learning style.
Which makes sense, especially given their focus on personalized support and creating a welcoming environment for everyone. It's like they're saying, we're in this together.
Exactly. And this idea of fostering a proactive and supportive environment goes hand in hand with that. Because they're not just waiting for problems to arise before taking action, right?
Yeah.
They're actively creating a culture of support and encouragement.
It's like they're saying, we believe in you and we're here to help you be your best self.
I love that. You've really captured the essence of their approach. And speaking of being your best self, they also emphasize empowering students as responsible digital citizens.
Which is huge these days,
Yeah.
especially with all the challenges and opportunities that come with the digital world.
Absolutely.
Right.
They're not shying away from technology. Instead, they're integrating it into their approach and making sure students have the skills to navigate the online world ethically and responsibly.
So instead of just saying, don't cheat, they're saying, here's how to be a good person, both online and offline.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm.
The York School views academic honesty not as an isolated set of rules, but as part of a much larger commitment to developing well-rounded, ethical individuals who are ready to take on the world.
It's like they're giving students the tools and values they need to thrive in a world that's constantly changing.
Well said. They're preparing them not just for the next test or the next grade, but for the next chapter of their lives.
It's really impressive. You've got to hand it to them. So to wrap things up, we've learned that the York School has a really unique and thoughtful approach to academic honesty. It's not about catching you out. It's about setting you up for success and helping you become the best version of yourself.
Couldn't have said it better myself. They're truly leading the way in creating a more supportive and holistic learning environment.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. How can we all, whether we're educators, parents, or even just members of a community, contribute to creating a culture of integrity and support, not just in schools, but in all aspects of life?
Now that's a question worth pondering.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.